gas leases on federal land affecting somewhere between 250 and 400,000 jobs potentially if those lease cancellations are kept in force. Oh, that wasn't asked.
No.
It should be because energy policy is important for our economic vitality. It's also at a macro level. It's also important for the economic vitality of energy sector workers at the micro level. And that latter topic is one covered by Vince Bielski in a piece at RealClearInvestigations.com worth checking out. Vince is a former senior editor at Bloomberg. He's written about the tension between the green jobs and the blue collars, and he joins us to discuss. Vince, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
You offer a good anecdote about the promise, the marketing of the green jobs that are going to be there for those displaced by the cancellation of the Keystone Pipeline and the cancellation of these leases potentially and so forth. At least that's what the administration holds out as a promise. But the reality on the ground, how those promises are or not fulfilled, how the sector actually operates, can be a little bit different than the dreamy picture that is presented by the Biden administration.
That's right. The country is going through a transition on production of electricity, and that's ramping up. And so we'll be losing fossil fuel jobs, particularly beginning with coal. Those jobs are already going away for coal miners and workers in coal-powered power plants. And the new jobs that are being created in wind and solar are primarily construction jobs. And the point of my article is that the new jobs coming around are not as good as the jobs we're losing. And there's several reasons for that. And when I say they're not as good, what I mean primarily is that they don't pay as well, they don't come with the same benefits, and they're not long-lasting. And so the country, as it goes through this energy transition, should pay a little more attention to what we're doing with the men and women who are actually building tomorrow's energy future. My story focused on examples of wage theft, where workers will build these massive complexes called wind farms and sometimes not get paid for them because subcontractors do devious things. This is a problem in the industry. Safety is another problem in the industry. Building a wind farm is a dangerous endeavor. It's as dangerous as it gets. These are windy areas and big parts being, swung around by big cranes, and I documented at least 8 deaths in the wind farm construction industry. So the Biden administration needs to take a look at this. States that regulate, have some power over regulating how the industry operates, also needs to take a look at this. States like Minnesota have done a good job in seeing that local labor plays a big role in the construction of these projects, and that usually means it comes with some protections. But it's really interesting. A lot of today's energy sector, big wind and solar projects, are being built by out-of-state labor. What we have is a nomadic workforce traveling the country, building these projects, and once they're built, they require virtually no labor to operate. So it's an issue, and I think the country needs to take a closer look at it.
Well, in your article, you featured, workers who came from Texas, Michigan, and other states. They traveled to central Kansas. And what happened to those people?
Well, what happened to those people is that after working for several months on this big project owned by one of the biggest utilities in the country, the subcontractor that they work for, and that's how these big projects are built, there's different levels of companies involved, ran out of money and could no longer pay them. And that issue went all the way up the chain, and the owner of the project is also not paying them. So we have about 100 workers that are owed in total over $100,000, several hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they're not going to be paid unless they can win in court, which is always difficult. So these are some of the just unfair labor practices that are going on today, kind of under the surface of our transition to green energy and clean energy, which is important in many levels, but we're not paying a lot of attention to the people we're asking to actually construct this. Think back what happened with coal miners many decades ago when coal mines collapsed. And it took a long time for those industries to figure out how to turn those jobs in, very dangerous work into jobs that could support a family and that Americans could be proud of. We're not there yet with the renewable energy sector.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah, it's a real surprising industrial policy, and the central planners don't have it all figured out, and they just throw money at the direction of something they wish would happen, and you have a bunch of rent seekers pop up out of nowhere to build windmills. It's a real surprise, not to anybody who's passed an Econ 101 class, but I also would suggest that, of course, technology is going to push the energy sector to evolve like every sector. However, like this transition to green that's so inevitable and sort of the vision that the Biden administration has and their acolytes, I'm not so sure. As Mark Mills points out, Mark Mills, who's a fellow at the Northwestern's McCormick School of Engineering, canceling the Keystone Pipeline didn't eliminate oil use. It just shifted where it shipped to and how it shipped somewhere else and more expensively. And so, yes, if you can make the price of something artificially high enough to decrease demand for some legitimate, reliable alternative, perhaps you can expedite the transition. But, reliable is a big problem when it comes to renewables, or as some energy sector analysts call them, unreliables. So, this transition they think is going to happen so seamlessly, and I'm not saying you do, but the way they talk about it is it can just happen so seamlessly, and it won't grind up a bunch of people's jobs and household income in the process, not to mention the impact it'll have on, changing the climate, if any. These are all very much open questions.
They're challenging. They're definitely challenging situations, and it can be addressed on the state level. It's not really. Primarily, energy policy is set at the state level, and around the country, states are doing making various moves. If you look at Arizona, traditionally a politically conservative state, but it has recently set itself up as a leading state to push solar power, and has committed to having 100% clean energy by 2050. Now, why you talk about Economics 101? Why is that the case? It's because solar power has become the cheapest form of power in the state of Arizona. And why is that the case? Because it's always sunny in Arizona. And so what's interesting about this transition is it's going to be state by state, and
Yes.
different states will have different challenges. Ohio, a state very close to you, has a completely different set of situations, and it has been resisting the move to alternative power, partly because it can't do so as cheaply as it can continue running its gas and nuclear power plants. And so states like that, you'll see bigger battles, other issues being raised during the transition. And I think it's important for your listeners to keep in mind that the renewable energy that's being built it's not going to supply 100% of America's electricity by 2050 or in the future. What we're going to end up with is a much more diverse mix of sources. Nuclear power is going to be with us for the foreseeable future, as will natural gas. What's really happening is the alternatives will be taking the place of coal. And, that's as much for economic reasons as climate change reasons. Coal has just become more expensive to produce coal power. And so the economics is really driving this. And underneath the economics is, do you have a lot of wind or sun in your state? And so, the Midwest has a fair amount of wind. Different states are different. I'm from Michigan, and Michigan went through a very big wind development stage in the last decade. So it's an important story that will be affecting consumers and workers, and we'll be hearing a lot more about it.
No question, and this is why the conversation should include sort of what you were touching upon. I agree with you that the mix of energy will be more diverse than it is now in terms of the percentages employed to deliver the capacity required to power the world's largest economy. And so the question should be: so who drives that distribution of participation? Is it going to be central planners and the rent seekers, or is it going to be more market oriented? And also too the promise on the climate change piece. I mean, yeah, I understand Joe Biden thinks all West Virginia coal miners should learn to code, but here's something: cancellation of the Keystone Pipeline. China is building coal plants that equal about 20 Keystone pipelines. So if this is a global issue, you don't have participation from China and India and a lot of the developing world, then what you think you're doing and what you're actually doing are two different things. And it leads one to question the motives of people who are promising things that are going to be very difficult to deliver, particularly when politicians promise something, 15 and 30 years out, which is always, a bit of folly, isn't it?
Right, right. We need to pay attention to what's happening in the next 5 and 10 years. And so long-term promises are just that, just long-term promises. China is a really interesting situation that the world obviously needs to keep its eye on, because on the one hand, you're absolutely right. They're going through a massive build-out of coal-fired power plants right now. At the same time, they promise in about a decade's time to pivot very aggressively to renewable energy, and by 2060, basically emit no more greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. And the interesting thing about China is its ability, because obviously it's a central planned economy, its ability to move rapidly in one direction as opposed to the other. And so it's claiming that it will be able to pivot very quickly. And so it's made more aggressive promises than the United States has made at this point. Now, again, as you point out, these are just promises. And I think what we need to do is keep in mind what's happening at the state level, wherever you happen to live. And in some states, green energy is more expensive. In some states, it's less expensive. And that really is pushing the needle on which way to go. And you have to understand that we're in places like Arizona, where you save on your electricity bill, your monthly bill, because of solar power, that's a good thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good thing that we don't have to mine and do extractive processes. If you can just get it free from the sun, why not exploit Mother Nature? At the same time, when those workers in these states are losing their jobs, I think it is a good idea for state governments to take a look at where these workers can be replaced. And it's never a seamless process. I grew up, in Detroit near the auto industry, and we saw what happened to the auto workers over the last 30 years. It will be messy. That's the way capitalism moves. But I think it can move more smartly, and that's what my story was about. We don't have to dislocate entire regions just to get to where we want to go economically. We can think more smartly about how to plan these things, and it's not so much central planning. It's often done simply through tax incentives. So the big thing,
but that's a form of central planning. I mean, preferred tax treatment is a form of central planning.
Well, it is a central policy, a federal policy, but keep in mind what's happening now with the coal industry. So the big initiative coming out of Joe Manchin, you know him as the senator from West Virginia, very powerful Democrat right now, and a very big advocate for his coal communities in West Virginia and in states like Pennsylvania and Wyoming. They're pushing something called carbon capture technology.
Yeah, right.
And this could be a very important development if they can bring the costs down. And basically what we're doing is grafting technology onto coal plants and natural gas plants to keep them around for a lot longer. And if it works, it's going to be really important for both the state, for the revenues in these states, for the local communities to have jobs. And the reason that it's rolling out today is because of tax incentives that's going to help it, develop in ways it needs to. So tax incentives, and we have to remember that the oil and the gas industry also receives tax incentives.
I know. It's a problem. It's a problem across the board. That's my point. I mean, I'm not ideological about sources of energy. the climate apocalyptics and the lobbyists are, and the preferred tax benefit, the tax benefits, preferred tax treatment, all of these various energy sectors get. The best thing to do to make sure you get the mix that is optimal is remove them all and let market viability dictate energy mix. How about that concept that very few people talk about?
Well, there's certainly the market needs to be driving the bus here. At the same time, the bus can go off the road, and I think we saw the bus go off the road in Texas with the issue of the grid. And of course, Texas is a deregulated energy market, and essentially what happened in Texas is that the market forces did not protect that grid and that power structure from cold weather, even though there were economic incentives to do that, which is the fact that if you do that, you will eventually draw more customers and create a more secure energy sector in the state of Texas. So it's a complicated energy.
It is complicated, and so is the Texas failure.
And you need to be smart. And I think the smart approach has been in various states that have been able to look at the situation and discover that why are we building more? This is, again, I'm taking you back to Arizona, and this is a very recent story. I would encourage your listeners who are interested in this topic to Google, energy and Arizona, and to see what that state has recently done, which is they've discovered that just let the sun power the homes, and they can do so reliably and save everybody some money. In other states, that's not possible, or it's going to cost them more. And so I think if you break this up and let the states drive the buses, you're going to get a more precise and smarter energy policy emerging. And that's what the country is grappling with right now, is what to do in various states that are struggling with this.
He is Vince Bielski, former senior editor at Bloomberg. Check out his piece, realclearinvestigations.com. On the climate front, tensions where green jobs meet blue collars. Vince, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
It was my pleasure.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy using the AM560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Safety. It's so important at your industrial facility. You need to keep your personnel safe and meet OSHA requirements. One problem with your ladders, platforms, or safety guards, and you could be facing costly fines. Vans Industrial helps you meet OSHA standards to keep your employees safe.
Hi, I'm Dave Van Camp, president of Vans Industrial. As a business owner, I realize the importance of keeping my employees safe, and I'm here to offer my expertise. Vans Industrial is a specialty contractor uniquely equipped to design, fabricate, and install safety equipment, including walkways, handrails, stairways, and machinery guards. Our Vans Industrial team can inspect existing systems, engineer solutions, fabricate quality goods, and install them with trained pros, all making a safer environment for your employees.
Vans uses only the best and safest union-trained mechanics, insured at the highest level, to perform the job right. Call 833-VANS-IND. That's 833-VANS-IND. Or on the web at vansindustrial.com.
Right now, Allstate has almost as many ways to save as there are types of music. Save for being a new customer. Save more for adding DriveWise. And save even more for driving safely. Visit Allstate.com or contact your local agent to get a quote. Find out how much you can save today. Allstate. Now that should be music to your ears.
Not available in every state. New customer savings based on early signing discount. DriveWise is an optional feature. Savings vary based on how you buy. Subject to terms and conditions. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
What do you get when you talk to a Dell Technologies advisor? You get someone who understands there's an art to listening.
Sure.
Who's able to hear more than what's being said and can provide tailored small business solutions that make you feel truly heard.
I understand. Let's get started.